Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we are wrestling with a source document that presents one of the most, I would say, demanding theological frameworks we've ever looked at.
It's incredibly dense.
Right. We're talking about the conditions needed for spiritual restoration, for unity, and really for world redemption. And it's all laid out in this one very challenging document from 1977.
That's right. Our focus is a very specific interpretation of history and providence. It comes from excerpts of a speech by Sun Myung Moon delivered back in May 1977. It was titled "The Living Sacrifice, A Call to Unity."
And it really does more than just discuss faith.
Oh, absolutely. It tries to redefine the entire historical path of Christianity. It lays out this detailed theological argument about sacrifice, redemption, and, the state of division we see today.
So our mission today is to really unpack this. We need to get into the logic behind its pretty unique definition of sacrifice.
And we have to tackle that incredibly provocative claim, the idea that Jesus' mission was somehow incomplete.
Exactly. And then what does that mean for you, the listener? What kind of radical, maybe even revolutionary action is required to become what the text calls the living sacrifice?
Well, it all starts with the fall of man. The source says that's where the necessity for sacrifice even began.
Right. It's not some arbitrary ritual.
It's a direct result of the fall. The original failure, according to this teaching, which followers call the divine principle, was that Adam didn't stand fully on God's side, and that one failure prevented God from being able to claim ownership of creation.
So sacrifice isn't just about saying sorry, it's about possession.
Yes.
The source makes it clear that these symbolic acts, like the shedding of blood in the Old Testament, it's a method for God to determine the ownership of everything, to separate good from evil.
And this is where the Old Testament sacrifices become so important. You had offerings of created things, animals, crops, but the source teaches that those were just conditional steps.
Steps toward what?
They were meant to purify the altar, so that man himself could eventually be the one to rest on that altar, to be offered fully to God.
Okay, so here's the paradox, and I think this really shifts everything. The offering is, and the source is emphatic about this, it's not for God's sake.
No, not at all. It's solely for man's sake. It's an opportunity for man to sort of indemnity his way into heaven, to bridge that huge gap created by the fall.
That reframing is fundamental, isn't it?
It is. It means God isn't sitting there needing the sacrifice to be satisfied. He's just judging the condition. He's checking the heart of the person making the offering. Man is the one who benefits.
And there's a little nugget in there about permanence. The source says this whole process, making offerings, it isn't meant to go on forever.
Right. A day will come when restoration is complete and no one will need to make offerings anymore. It implies a finish line.
Which brings us to Jesus Christ, the ultimate universal sacrifice.
And this is where we get to that really challenging claim, that Jesus' offering, despite being a spiritual success, didn't achieve physical consummation.
Which is, that stands in complete opposition to 2,000 years of Christian doctrine. The cross is usually seen as the final victory.
It is.
So how does the source explain this? How can Jesus be the Messiah if the mission was incomplete?
Well, the argument is that Jesus came as that universal sacrifice on the altar of Israel. He intended to restore everything, physical and spiritual, right then and there.
But
remember the paradox. Man is the beneficiary, so man had to be part of the offering. The people of Israel, the disciples, they had to unite with Jesus to complete the condition.
And this is where it gets really fascinating. The source claims that when Jesus was crucified, that necessary unity was just gone.
Utterly lacking. It says, no one was there to offer that sacrifice to God. The
Yeah.
people, the priests, the disciples, the whole human side of the condition had vanished or rejected him.
So because the people failed, the offering had to be split.
Exactly. It could only be effective by separating Jesus' spirit and his body. His physical body came to represent the faithless people of Israel, while his spirit became the actual accepted sacrifice.
And the source suggests if they had united, history would be completely different.
Completely. He would have lived, married, and established the physical kingdom of heaven on earth.
So this separation, mind and body, spiritual and physical, that's the absolute core of the argument then.
It's the crux of everything. Because the physical offering failed, restoration could only move forward in the spiritual realm, and that created this massive gap.
A permanent gap. So the New Testament era became divided, a spiritual dispensation and a physical one.
Precisely. Jesus established a spiritual foundation. So believers can go to a spiritual heaven. But the actual physical transformation of the world, that was put on hold.
That's a staggering implication. The world is still waiting for the physical offering to be made.
And the source claims that this gap, the separation between Jesus and the people, it can't be closed just by believers trying to get along today.
Which leads directly into the crisis of division in modern Christianity.
Right. If believers are the body of Christ, then having thousands of denominations means Jesus' body has been divided up. The source calls it heartbreaking and unacceptable to God. It's as if his body was torn apart by his own followers.
It's a powerful challenge. The source asks, how can there be 1,000 bodies when there is only one mind?
And even if, let's say, all the Christian denominations managed to unite today, Catholics, Protestants, everyone under one leader, it still wouldn't be enough.
Why not?
Because that unity would still be based on the spiritual foundation from 2,000 years ago. The fundamental failure, Jesus' mind and body not being offered together, that left a permanent gap. So the condition for restoration has to be something much more dramatic.
We need one more universal physical offering.
One that is not separated, spirit and body together. A living sacrifice.
And to do that, Christianity has to first unite into one body. It's a prerequisite.
It's a non-negotiable prerequisite.
Yeah.
And this completely redefines the second coming. The role of the Lord of the Second Advent, in this view, is to finally restore the conditions that were broken at the crucifixion.
So this figure would embody the spirit of Jesus, but also represent the now unified body of Christianity. The two halves finally coming together.
Becoming that completely united living sacrifice, the consummation of what was left undone.
And the source is very direct in challenging the traditional view of this.
Oh, yes. It dismisses the idea of Christ appearing up in the air with trumpets as, ironic in modern scientific age. The claim is, why would a rational God send the Messiah in a way modern people would just write off as a hallucination?
It points to a much more grounded, physical kind of restoration. But there are high stakes for failing to unite before then. The text uses a pretty heavy metaphor.
It's a stark warning. If Christianity fails to unite, God may allow it to become so weakened and fragmented like a shattered pottery vase that it doesn't even have the energy to crucify the Messiah again.
So unity isn't just about patching things up.
No, it's about melting all the broken pieces together and remolding them. It has to be a revolution, a totally new shape.
Unification, then, is the single most important qualification for meeting the Messiah.
Without that foundation, the Messiah can't be sent. But if it is ready, then the Messiah will lead a heavenly army to, and this is a quote, liquidate the satanic world.
And the goal goes way beyond just Christian denominations.
It's world unity. The ideal is to unite all people as brothers and sisters, all 5 races, black, white, yellow, red, brown, into one family of God.
The source uses a really striking analogy here to hammer home the point about human division.
It does. It suggests that with all the fighting between denominations and races, humanity is far inferior even to cattle.
That's a strong statement.
The logic is simple, though. Cattle on a ranch don't fight just because they have different colored hides. The fighting among humans shows a lack of a unified purpose that even animals seem to surpass.
And this need for unity leads to the idea of a mediator, especially in the context of America in 1977 with racial conflict and religious conflict.
Specifically, the text mentions black versus white conflict and Christian versus Jewish conflict. The argument is that neither side in these disputes can ever be the mediator.
Because the other side will never listen to them.
Exactly. So God must send an external mediator.
And the source is very specific about who this mediator must be.
It claims the mediator has to be a yellow man to solve these conflicts tearing American society apart.
So the speaker, Sun Myung-moon, is positioning himself in that role.
That's the explicit claim. He says he came to America as this external mediator to solve this impossible division without government money or politics. He acknowledges the opposition, the accusations of anti-Semitism, but says he has to endure it all.
He describes his own will as being like iron.
An iron will and a fearful mind that only God can control. The suggestion is that kind of single-mindedness is the only way to win.
Okay, so that brings this whole massive cosmic framework down to the personal level. What does this mean for an individual? How do you actually live this philosophy of the living sacrifice?
Well, it's not passive. A living sacrifice means you are actively moving toward the ideal. You are changing the world. The source is clear. Followers must change themselves and the world. Jesus did not come to be changed.
Which requires a total break from self-centered thinking.
Especially in prayer. This is another one of those shocking claims. The source says God is tired of hearing the same selfish, nagging beggar's prayers.
Things like, God, can you give me a little more blessing?
Or please protect my family.
Mm.
The source sees these as self-centered. Man is just constantly asking God to solve his own small problems.
So what's the alternative? What is the right kind of prayer?
The true prayer, the one that makes God's eyes pop out, is a prayer of comfort and encouragement to God.
So you're comforting God.
Yes, you're saying, God, don't you worry about me. You rest right there and let me go down and take over your job. It's a radical declaration of being a co-worker with God.
Wow. And it doesn't pull any punches. It calls Christians who only worry about their own salvation thieves. That's an incredible moral challenge.
It's a complete condemnation of sectarianism. Inheriting Jesus' philosophy means you adopt his conviction. God is my God, mankind are my brethren, and this whole world is waiting to be recreated.
From that viewpoint, denominations are just roadblocks.
Roadblocks for God that have to be broken down. If you're only focused on getting yourself into heaven while the world is suffering, you're acting like a thief.
The action has to be totally centered on the world and God. But there's a paradox in it, isn't there? A benefit to all this effort.
There is. The source clarifies that while you're doing all this hard work, the fundraising, the witnessing, you are, strictly speaking, doing it for your own salvation and for your children. Your deeds on earth, done out of love, are the only gift God can even recognize as meaningful.
It ties it all back to your own legacy,
Mm.
which leads to, I think, the most powerful and maybe shocking conclusion in the whole document.
It's the ultimate identity claim. That by fully inheriting Jesus' mind, by thinking and acting exactly as he does, you become one with him.
And the source proclaims that everyone was created to be a Messiah.
And that followers can go out and proclaim, I am the Messiah.
That's the physical manifestation of the Messiah. That's the final goal, to become that unified living sacrifice and complete the mission here on earth.
So this deep dive has, it's revealed an incredibly complex and challenging idea of restoration. It demands so much more than traditional faith. It dismisses conventional ideas of the second coming, and it requires this total, intense, action-oriented self-sacrifice.
The highest principle seems to be living entirely for God and the world, focused only on the mission, no matter the personal cost.
Even unto death.
So as a final provocative thought to leave you with, think about the implications of applying this idea of universal service to your closest relationships. The source suggests that when a husband looks at his wife, he should think, my wife is representative of all the women of the world.
So the unity in a marriage isn't just a private bond.
No, it becomes an example of universal service for the world, a model proving that, in the world of love, there are no barriers. So think about that. What would it demand of you to see your most intimate relationships not as something personal, but as a symbolic, living example for world restoration?